Hey guys, so this is my vintage Inca 259 table saw with mortising attachment. I'm in the process of refurbishing this thing. Picked it up to complement my Inca joiner planer. Thought it'd be a nice addition. And I might even consider having it replace my rigid 4512, even though I really like that saw. We'll see how it goes. But this particular saw is special in that the table raises and lowers rather than the blade. It's got a fixed arbor here. It doesn't move. That's why you're able to have this mortising attachment. It's got a fixed arbor, and then the table goes up and down and tilts side to side. But it does that via this really fine threaded dial here. So you turn this. You see that little pin sticking out of that arm? That rides on this side of the fence, on this, which is basically your tabletop in your housing, and it rides in there and raises and lowers it, and this surface contacts this surface, and they're held in place with a couple washers and screws that you loosen this, and then when you want to use the saw, you clamp it back down. But when I got mine, you see how freely this thing spins, like just with one finger? I couldn't do it. Even with nothing attached to it, I was having to crank it. And that's because they used, I'm assuming it's a white lithium grease or something, but it turns rock hard. So you can see here, it's on the end of this pin, and it's also inside the cavity here for it. And you can see this stuff just hardens up like plastic. You can see I'm trying to break it off there. It's like glue. It turns into glue. So it was coated on these two bearing surfaces here and was making the table really difficult to move up and down. So I wanted to pull it apart to get all of this off and put some proper lubrication on it. And let me flip this upside down. So I'm going to show you also what the bottom looks like. So when you look down in here, you see you have this arm and then the screw here. And then this just kind of free floats in this casting, this webbing. You can see that they put this grease all in here and elsewhere throughout the system, over the threads, and it just was totally seized up, not wanting to move. I took a couple drops of denatured alcohol, put it down in there trying to break that up, and immediately it just broke free and it was turning super smooth without issue. So dramatic improvement there. Now the reason why you want to take care of this is you do not want a ton of tension being applied into this system trying to get it to move. And this is also basically the weak point of the system. A lot of machines will get parted out because this little arm here breaks right at this section here. And Jesse at Eagle Tools, he bought out basically the stock from Garrett Wade when Garrett Wade stopped carrying Inca. He now has the parts, and he apparently gets few calls a year for people looking for replacement parts for this machine, this part in particular. Now you can have it machined by a machinist, but who wants to have to deal with that? So I think a lot of the issues that guys are breaking these is it's not so much the raising and lowering that's stressing it. I think that they're bottoming it out. So if you're having to crank this thing super tight to move it, you're used to having to just really turn. When you go bottomed out, either high or low, and you come up onto the end of that adjustment range and people I think will just still crank it and be cranking on it because you're used to having to put that much torque into getting the system to move, and then you end up just putting way too much pressure, and then that ends up fracturing. Or it just could be that this is not wanting to slide at all because it's basically frozen up. The two surfaces have basically frozen together and aren't wanting to move, and you're trying to turn this thing, and there's too much friction here, too much force being applied to this, and then it snaps and breaks off. So you want to make sure this system runs totally smooth. So I'm probably going to remove this nut. You got to remove all of these actually to fully unthread it from here, but I'm probably going to do that and just totally re-lubricate everything and clean everything because I want this thing to last another 30 years for me. So just a little tip, if you have one of these machines or you run across one, even if the knob feels a little tight, as long as the table moves, that's okay. You can still fix it. And if you own one and you're experiencing this, I highly recommend that you pull it apart It's not a huge tear down. I mean, it's not that tough, but it will improve the performance and longevity of the saw infinitely. So if you have the saw, do it, guys. It's well worth the time, and you'll be a lot happier with the adjustment mechanism. So just thought I'd throw that out there. Take care.